Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Closeout, What OVC Anti-Trafficking Grantees Need to Know, hosted by the Office for Victims of Crime. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Olga Santiago, Grants Management Specialist with OVC's Human Trafficking Division, to begin the presentation. Olga?
Thank you, Daryl. Hello, everyone. As Daryl said, my name is Olga Santiago, and I'm a Grant Manager Specialist at OVC, the Human Trafficking Division. And we want to thank you for joining us on this webinar, the Closeout webinar, what OVC Anti-Trafficking Grantees need to know. And we have several team members that will be part of this presentation. I will let them introduce themselves, starting with Erica.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Law, and I am a training facilitator with OAM, working with the JustGrants team. Thank you so much for having me today, and I'll hand it over to Harif.
Thank you, Erica. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Harif Balagoon, and I'm the OVC Performance Management Team TTA Specialist. That's training and technical assistant. And it's great to speak with you all. Now I'll turn it over to Kyle.
I'm Kyle Wade. I'm a Grants Management Financial Specialist with the OVC Financial Management Resource Center. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon.
Thank you all. We're also going to have a team of people that we're going to be answering your question on the chat. And please, let's start moving that chat up. So please let us know your name and the task force that you work with. You can write that on the chat so we can see you and the information there and say hi to you. So we're going to have, this is a webinar outline. Basically, we just started with a welcome, objective, and housekeeping. Then Erica is going to be talking about JustGrants overview. She will be talking about the closeout module, the submission, the requirements, and uploading deliverables on JustGrants. Then Harif is going to be talking about the PMT, performance management tips. So he's going to be talking about the report requirements, the two-step final report, submission, and what should be included on the narrative responses. Then Kyle is going to talk about the financial compliance tips. So he's going to talk everything related to financial reminders, FFR, financial reconciliation, the match requirements, and the retention of documents. And at the end, if there are still questions that have not been answered, we're going to have a few minutes so we can answer any question that you may have regarding the webinar. Now I'm going to leave you with Erica, that she's going to start with the JustGrants overview.
Thank you so much, Olga. And I am going to share my screen here with you guys. And there we are. All right, so again, thank you everyone so much for joining us for this presentation. My name is Erica Law again, and I'm also joined, I believe I have one of my team members who will be jumping in here with me shortly, Lisa Hartman, to kind of support me with answering questions to make sure that we can answer all of your questions. I just want to come to you today to show you how what you need to know as far as closeout in JustGrants. So we're going to start our discussion today by talking about the people that are most important in the closeout process. We'll also talk about the important timeline related to closeouts and why this process is so important, because there are specific requirements for closeouts, and we'll go through talking about each of them. It'll also be important for you to understand where you can find your award closeout in JustGrants and how to actually accomplish all those steps. And then we'll close this topic with some points of emphasis for you to take away with you for consideration, and when it's time for you to close out your award. And then I'll also give you some JustGrants resources. So let's go right on and jump into our discussion where we'll talk about the who, when, why, and what of closeout. So as the award recipient, specifically the grant award administrator for your award, you're going to begin the closeout process. So the date after your project period ended, your award is going to appear in the grant award administrator's work list in a pending initiate closeout status. All right. So again, only for the grant award administrator, it'll be in their work list, and it'll be in pending initiate closeout status. You won't need to do anything to make your closeout appear, but you will need to take steps to review and process your closeout. And I'm going to show you how that works in a few minutes. Now, your grant award administrator has the responsibility to review the requirements, submit the federal financial reports from the closeout screen, add comments and attachments as needed, and submit the closeout package. The grant award administrator can initiate a closeout prior to the project end date if needed, but that's another process, and we can give you that information as well. Now, as the grant award administrator, once you've reviewed, verified, and submitted your closeout, JustGrants is going to send it to your program office for their review. And they may continue to communicate with you to request information or documentation, just depends on what's needed. And once your program office is satisfied with the completion and compliance, then the office forwards that closeout package to the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, or OCFO, to begin that financial portion of closeout. Remember, even though you've submitted your closeout, it remains in review at DOJ until OCFO has determined that it is ready to be closed. So be prepared for additional communication regarding your award. Now, timing is essential, all right? So as a recipient, you need to be aware of your closeout timeline. Recipients should start the closeout process as soon as the program is complete and all federal and matching funds have been sent. As a grant recipient, you must submit all closeout documents and complete all of your requirements within 120 calendar days after your project period end date, right? After the end date of your grant. If you do not meet this requirement, then JustGrants will automatically submit the closeout for review on day 121. Okay, so if you don't do it within that first 120 days, JustGrants is going to automatically do it on day 121. Now, your program office must submit your closeouts to OCFO within 150 calendar days after the end date of the grant. And upon receipt of that closeout package, OCFO generally has about 60 calendar days to complete it. Now, ultimately, OJP's goal is to close all grants within 210 calendar days after the end of the grant. Okay, so that's your timeline. Make sure you're aware of those dates. Now, OJP uses a non-compliant closeout for recipients who are unwilling or unable to complete the closeout requirements. So if a recipient is non-compliant and hasn't, or they don't do the closeout within that 120 calendar days after the end of the grant, then the grant manager will process a non-compliant closeout. Okay. Non-compliant closeouts may have an impact on future awards with OJP, and it can affect the pre-award risk assessment results if your organization applies for grants in the future. It can also mean that your active awards have the potential for an increase in monitoring activities by OJP. And in some cases, your award funds can be frozen. So let's do our best to not be, a non-compliant closeout. Now, there are 6 closeout requirements. Okay, 6. I know it used to be 5. We've kind of threw a little extra thing in there for you now. But 6 requirements to close out. Your final performance report needs to be submitted and approved, right? Your final federal financial report, or FFR, must be submitted and approved prior to submitting the closeout. A financial reconciliation between the amount obligated and the amount of funding the applicant has drawn down must be completed. Now, for awards with non-federal match requirements, that information must also be included. All award conditions must be compliant prior to submitting your closeout. All requested award deliverables must be attached to the award. Final deliverables are submitted, as each program office requires. Now, your deliverables may be documentation requested to satisfy programmatic requirements, or it could be documentation to satisfy an award condition. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that it is there, it's attached. Now, your closeout requirements now include grant award modifications, or GAMs. So if they are any pending GAMs, so GAMs in any pending status, i.e. pending approval, pending change requested, then those GAMs need to be resolved prior to closeout. Now, if there are no pending GAMs or no GAMs that need to be addressed, then the GAM won't appear in your closeout requirements list. If you see GAMs in your closeout requirement list, that means that there is one that needs to be addressed, right? Now, both the grant award administrator, who has the authority and the ability to administer and manage a closeout on behalf of your entity, and an internal grant management initiator, the first internal role to review the closeout, can initiate an award closeout prior to your award end date if that's needed. All right. And remember, the day after the award period ends, JustGrants will automatically generate the closeout and it'll notify the recipient of its creation and the due date. So these are the 6 requirements for closeout. And remember, GAMs will only appear in your closeout requirement checklist if they are in a pending status. Now, during our training sessions, we get some questions typically about closeouts, and these are some of the more common ones. First is, when does a closeout appear in the work list? And we talked about that. It's going to appear one day after your project period end date, and it only appears in the work list for your grant award administrator. All right. We're also asked, why can't I view the financial reconciliation? You will not be able to complete the financial reconciliation while the final FFR remains in an incomplete status. And the final FFR must be submitted, reviewed, and moved to a resolved complete status to view and edit the financial reconciliation. Now, you can still proceed with your closeout if the financial reconciliation is in incomplete status, right? Now, another question we always get is, can I submit a closeout prior to the project period end date? And the answer is yes, you can do that. You just navigate to the award, select that begin tab, and you can go ahead and initiate that closeout, right? So I do want to take a moment to see, Lisa was there. I think, Lisa, I saw there was a quick question that appeared there in the chat for me. Was it
there
something
was.
I can address real quick?
Yeah, there was a quick question. The question was, is there a list of all closeout documents required?
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that came up prior to your discussion, but I think Erica was very clear in the closeout requirements, and the additional documentation would be related sometimes specifically to your program or project. So you'd have to find that out from your grant manager. OCFO might also ask for documentation. But we did just get another one. The question is, we submitted an NCE request as we got started on using our funds late for a variety of unexciting reasons. If we're successful in obtaining this NCE, then we would not close out this current grant until the time the NCE expires. Is that correct? So that one I'm going to go ahead and ask.
We'll actually leave that one for the end. We'll address that one at the end. Yep.
Okay. Here's another one. If an extension is requested, will a closeout date be adjusted accordingly? So Erica, did you want to address that one?
You can, sorry, you can go ahead real quick.
Okay. So if an extension is requested, that's typically a grant award modification called a project period extension GAM. And yes, if that project period extension GAM is requested and approved, then it will automatically extend the closeout date. It will extend the project period end date. You'd still have 120 days at the end of that, but your project period end date would be extended, which would then automatically extend your closeout date. Now, within 30 days of the end of a project, the recipients are not able within 30 days to put through a project period extension modification. However, they can contact their grant manager, who is able to do that. That's the end of the questions for right now.
Awesome, Lisa. Thank you. Moving forward, if we do have any additional questions, we will actually just address them at the end when we get to the question and answer session. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into where closeout is done and how it's done. Right. So when you're ready to close out your award, you're going to do that in JustGrants. And one of the benefits of using JustGrants to close out is that you have direct access from the closeout screen to all of the other elements of your award, including access to the application, the solicitation, the original award package, your award conditions, and your budget information, as well as all your reports that were generated throughout the life of your award. So this means that you don't have to look far to answer any of the questions related to closeout. Now, the grant award administrator is going to be the individual that's going to complete the closeout in JustGrants. And this particular role allows the grant award administrator to generate a closeout earlier than the project period end date if needed. Now, they can also view all of the closeout requirements, submit the financial reconciliation from that closeout screen, add comments and attachments, and submit the closeout package. So that is, again, your grant award administrator. Now let's look at how to perform that closeout in JustGrants. So the grant award administrator for the award is going to see the award closeout in their work list. And once the closeout is open, there are several requirements that must be met, okay? So once you get into your award, you're going to select the closeout type. You know, is the award compliant or non-compliant? So we're going to select that here in the type. Now, the final federal financial report should be submitted and then resolved complete status. So here on the screen, you're seeing where everything is incomplete. This is going to prevent you from submitting your closeout. So you want to make sure that this all is in complete status. The financial reconciliation field is going to be active once the final federal financial report has been approved, and then you'll open the link to that reconciliation to complete it. Your final performance report should be in completed status. Now, the grant award modification shown here is going to need to be resolved prior to submitting your closeout. And if you hover over this little red triangle, you're going to get a pop-up that appears that's going to give you the information related to the GAM that is unresolved or that's not in a resolved status. So by hovering over, oops, let me go back there. I hit that button by mistake. By hovering over this red triangle, it's going to give you that GAM ID as well as the status that it is in. So that is how you'll determine which GAM is pending. Now, all award conditions should be compliant and all deliverables should be uploaded. And to check your award conditions and deliverables, you can simply scroll down to the bottom of the award to review it. Okay. Now, all items in the requirement screen should be completed prior to submitting closeout. Again, if there are no open GAMs, then you will not see that in your list there. All right. Now, if you should attempt to submit the closeout without resolving a GAM, this is the lovely error message that you will receive. Closeout will not be submitted and it will force you to go back and address it. Now, if there are no GAMs that are pending when you go to your closeout, this is the screen you'll see. Oh, sorry. And you notice here that GAMs is not listed there in your list. So again, you'll choose your closeout, compliant or non-compliant, and then you'll continue to meet all of your requirements until they are in completed status. Now, once you scroll down to the bottom of the closeout screen, you're going to see that there are links to all sections of your funded award. Now, you can open the award conditions section, right? It'll be the second one over, to manually review all award conditions and to make sure that they're all in compliance as indicated by yeses in that award in compliance column. Okay. Now, when you're ready to submit your closeout, you'll simply select that submit button at the bottom of the page, and you can also save it if you wanted to return to it later to complete it. But once you submit your closeout, it is routed to your grant manager to begin the review process. Access to any remaining funds will be closed. Now, again, you can submit a closeout prior to the end of the project period end date by simply opening your funded award in edit mode, which only your grant board administrator can do, and then you'll select the closeout award button and the award will move to pending initiate closeout status, and then you'll follow those same steps that we just went through. So now there are some things that we want you to keep in mind as you're preparing and carrying out the closeout process. So let's summarize it all and highlight a few things for you. All right, so JustGrants is going to automatically initiate your closeout the day after your project period end date. Your grant award administrator is the one that will see the funded award initiate closeout status in their work list. And once the closeout is initiated, you have 120 days to review the requirements, prepare it, and submit it. If it is not submitted within 120 days, JustGrants will automatically submit it on day 121. All right. And a grant award administrator can initiate the closeout prior to the project period end date if necessary. Now, to summarize everything we've gone through today, first of all, just please be aware of those timelines that are associated with closeout. You need to know the timeline so you know what to submit and when. Be sure that you're aware of the closeout requirements. It is your responsibility in making sure that these requirements are satisfied. Become familiar with the JustGrants closeout process. And then I'll show you in a minute how to access some written materials that can walk you through it. And if you have any questions about your closeout requirements, please contact your grant manager, right? So a few closeouts. Hope you gained a little more insight about the closeout process. Not a whole lot of information, but I do want to give you some resources just for you to be able to follow up if needed. The JustGrants website has much more information about JustGrants, including topic-specific training resources, user support information, and news and updates. And so all of the links are there for you. When you go to the JustGrants training resource page, you'll see a whole bunch of tiles that'll have different subjects on it. If you click on any of those tiles, you'll get a listing of materials that are going to help you maneuver that particular experience. So you'll get things like job aid reference guides and quick reference guides, which are going to be step-by-step reference guides that'll walk you through the various tasks in JustGrants. What you'll also find there are YouTube videos that'll actually walk you through some of these processes, as well as other written materials and status types. If you are an applicant or award recipient for an OVW award or OJP award, here's your information for tech support. And I know Olga's going to share that again at the end. But just to follow up, we do offer weekly training webinar series every week. And the specific topics are listed here. And I'll actually say go to the website. I just realized this is not completely updated, but this week we will be hosting entity management this afternoon, and on tomorrow we will be hosting application submission. So I do want to thank you guys for the opportunity to walk you through closeouts. And now what I am going to do is I am going to hand it over to Harif.
Perfect. Thank you, Erica and Lisa. Appreciate that. So now we're going to, excuse me, sorry, let me scroll to my section. Sorry about this. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Hello again. My name is Ray Volgoon, and I'm the OVC PMT team TTA specialist. Going to, give you some tips about how to close out your report accurately and on time, kind of touching on a few of the things that Erica and Lisa also mentioned in their section. So yeah, first we're going to talk about the two-step final report submission process to submit your final PDF report into JustGrants from the PMT. So these are the steps for generating your final PDF report. When you log into the PMT, you'll navigate to the Reports tab and select the applicable federal award that you're closing out. You'll locate the current or the final reporting period, and you'll see here, circled in red, you'll click the link that says Final PDF. Once that PDF has been generated, you'll save the report to a folder or a location on your computer. Your desktop is probably easily accessible, and then you'll have it there. And then from there, you'll go to JustGrants and upload that by your due date. So, and I had an image of the final report, but you should Your final report should or will aggregate all of the data that was reported over the course of your award. So from your first reporting period through your last period that the award was active. You should see the project start and end date at the top of the PDF and also in the top right of the grant information table. And again, after you do save it to your desktop, you'll log into JustGrants and you'll navigate to the corresponding performance report. You'll scroll down to the attachment section where you upload the report. So here you'll see the screenshot of one of the performance reports. The attachment section, you'll click upload the PDF, and then you'll be good to go. And then you won't get in trouble with Erica and Lisa. Part of the closeout process is also responding to narrative questions in JustGrants. So I'm going to give you a bit of information on how to best complete that. So in addition to the quarterly performance report that you upload into the PMT, or that you report into the PMT, grantees also report narrative response data on a semi-annual basis, but you'll also do it at the closeout of your award. You must report this narrative data directly into JustGrants, so it should not be uploaded as a separate attachment. These questions can be found under the Performance Management tab. So when you select that tab in JustGrants, again, you'll locate the appropriate reporting period. You'll choose the corresponding report number. And here, you'll see a begin button, and that's where you'll go and enter your responses. And just some final reporting tips, ways to best exemplify what you've done over the course of your award life. Again, the narrative questions will cover the entire duration of your award. You'll answer the questions based on the goals that you set to accomplish at the beginning of the award. So if you go back to your award application, review the goals and objectives that you set out, and just entering a couple thoughts about each goal and objective, the status of those goals and objectives is a great way to respond to the questions. And you'll only include work that was conducted with OVC awards funds. So I know a lot of our grantees have awards from different offices and also with their own internal funding, but these responses and all of your data should only reflect work that was done with the award funds. Narratives should be written by only you as the primary grantee. So if you do have any partners, you can receive input from them, but the responses themselves should be entered and submitted by you as the primary grantee. You do have to respond to every question. We don't accept, NAs. Just have something to enter for each of those questions. And we get in trouble with Olga if you don't give enough information. A good idea is to create those responses also in a Word document. That way you can just copy and paste them into JustGrants after you're done. And one of the best ways to view these questions is, if your grant manager were to stop by your office and ask how things are going, anything that you mentioned in that conversation would be more than fine to enter as a response. And then next, I want to give you all just some resources to assist you in your closeout process if you have any questions. If you go to the OVC website, there's recorded trainings and webinars, not only for your closeout process, but as you report your quarterly data as well. If you have any questions about how to best report or how to best respond to a certain measure, you can find those on the OVC website. And then also you can just contact our team directly via the help desk. If you want to schedule during the session, hour-long session with me, to ask any questions that you might have. Again, just clarify any weird situations that may arise over the course of your award. We're happy to help. With you all being the grantees, being the ones who are doing such important work, it's our job to help you as best as we can. So we're always available to help. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And here's just the contact information for the OVC PMT Help Desk and also JustGrants as well if you have any questions about the submission process. I know, again, it can be a bit confusing because there are two different help desks, but we're both here to help. So thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kyle.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm Kyle Wade, back again for the financial management perspective of the award. I am here with the OVC FMRC. Let me get back to our, here we go. We are the Financial Management Resource Center working with OVC, and we can help you with individual TA, your financial management resources, the things you've heard the other presenters mention before with your FFR, your closeout, any GAMs. We're here to help you with that aspect of it. And as you move into the closeout, as a couple of things to keep in mind is your cash reconciliation for your final draw, your FFR, including the match, returning any unspent funds, and as we've said, the timelines. We've brought that up multiple times. You do have the 120 days, and you can move on that quicker if you are ready to go. In collecting information for your final FFR, you want to make sure that you have all of your expenditures have been met. You don't have any unobligated balances sticking out there. Everything has been spent, and you want to do an internal reconciliation of all of your expenses before you do your reconciliation in JustGrants, and make sure that all of your information jives from your internal records to your FFR to your ASAP drawdowns, and that everything is fully supported. You do need supporting documentation, hard source supporting documentation or electronic for every expense that you claim on the grant. If you do not have documentation, then those funds will have to be returned. And the same thing with your match. Your matching requirement has to be met within that same time period. It falls under the same allowable obligations as your federal share. It has to be allowable, spent on the same funds with the scope of your project. And all of that has to be supported as well. You want to make sure that you have all of your documentation in place. If you have overdrawn your federal funds without meeting your match requirement, you will be asked to return funds. And as we said, that will be reported on your final FFR, your final cumulative expenses, and your match expenses. Once you have your internal reconciliation all done, you're ready to go, and now you can do your final drawdown. Hopefully you do not have any excess funds at this point to return, but you will do your final draw and liquidate your final expenses. If you're coming to your closeout and realize that you are not ready to close out your project yet, this should not be something really that you find out this late in the game. This should be something you approach with your grant manager a good 30, 60, even 90 days out from your closeout. But there are project period extensions as discussed earlier, and make sure that you do have a strong narrative for it, not just the time is over and we still have more money. You want to address any barriers that prevented you from fully expending the funds and what your action items are moving forward to expend those funds. And do get with your grant manager, as it says, as soon as possible. All the source documentation, as we talked about before, that's anything supporting your budget areas, procurement, personnel, fringe, those all need timesheets, payroll, attendance records, your signed contracts. Subawardees, you need their supporting documentation as well. And all of this documentation needs to be kept fully for 3 years from the official closeout, not when you submitted it or when the project period ended, but when you get that official notification from OCFO that your award is closed, you need to keep everything for another 3 years. And I do recommend that that's all combined and kept in a shared file somewhere, not just under one person's desk, because you could be asked for this 2 or 3 years from now, and you don't want that person to no longer be with your organization. So do make sure that your documentation, your reconciliation, all the documents that go with your award are combined together and kept in one accessible place. As we said, you've got your 120-day period. And as I discussed earlier, if you have drawn out excess funds by mistake, hopefully you don't find that during your closeout period, or if you've not met your match requirement, the excess fund needs to be returned as soon as possible, and get with your grant manager to let them know you do have excess funds and how to return that. And here is similar contact information, resources that you've been shown by the others. And we're going to move on to the Q&A session, but as I said, we can help you with any of those last minute items, your reconciliations, your final FFRs, any pending GAMs. Just reach out to us and we can walk you through those final closeout steps. And I think we're back to Olga, please.
Thank you, Kyle. So I know that we cover a lot of information in a very short period of time. This webinar has been recorded, and we're going to be sharing the video, the link, so you can review this again. So if you have any question, I know that we answer some of the questions here on the chat. Like the first question was if there is a list of all closeout documents required, and we addressed that during the presentation. Let me see. Okay, so a few people asked about the no-cost extension. So if you requested a no-cost extension, a project period no-cost extension, and this extension was approved, the system will automatically update the date, the new end date, so you don't have to submit a closeout prior that date. So the system will update the new date, and you just don't have to submit that closeout until the new project period end date. And again, you have 120 days to submit that closeout. So I saw 2 questions about that. Yeah. If an extension is requested, will the closeout date be adjusted accordingly? That's correct. Remember that no-cost extension has to be approved. It's not that you submitted a no-cost extension. It has to be approved by your grant manager. If initiating a closeout, does that restrict any financial deductions that may be a little delayed? Okay, when you start the closeout is started after the end date of the award. So you have what we call the liquidation period. And Melissa, this is something that you can address with the FMRC team. Kyle can assist you with that, but there's a liquidation period that you have after the end date of the award for any obligated funds that you have. So usually that's a 90 days, but you have to check. You have to check if it's an obligation, and and the liquidation pay period. Usually I can check on the financial guide, but I believe it's 90 days after the end date of the award that you have to pay any obligations that you have from that award. Let me see. Do we upload all backup documents, receipt payable, or to JustGrants? Sarah, I don't understand your question. If you upload all the supporting documents on JustGrants for the financial reconciliation or the FFR? I don't have your question clear here. Sam, yes, we will be sending the links and all the information that we presented here on this webinar. Can grantees get an extension for the 120-day submission deadline? The system is the one that actually, Sarah, yes, the financial reconciliation. Okay, I'll get back to you. So let me see, can grantees get an extension for the 120-day submission deadline? Jenny, this is something that the system actually, after the 120 days, on the 121, the system will automatically start what we call an administrative closeout. So that's something that we don't manage. So everything should be submitted prior to that 120 days. Okay, the financial reconciliation. Maybe Kyle can answer this one regarding the financial reconciliation on the closeout. Or Tara?
Not seeing the questions. What is the?
On the Q&A section on the chat. There's a chat. It says Q&A. So basically what she was asking is if they have to submit all the supporting documentation when they are doing the financial reconciliation on the closeout. I believe that they don't have to do that.
No, you do not. You need to keep it on hand, but you do not have to submit it unless requested with your financial reconciliation or your final
Okay.
effort.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if we have any other. I think that we answered. I think that we answered all of the questions here. So, okay. I'm going to give a few seconds if there's like another question that pop up here so we can go ahead and answer those. Yeah, Daryl share here that the webinar is recorded and transcript and PowerPoint slide will be posted. And he shared also the link here, so. Okay, so I don't see any more questions on the chat. I appreciate
Olga,
your time.
There's one other question that Daryl just entered. For the final closeout, are we only going into JustGrants to complete, or is there another system as well that we need to go into? So closeout is initiated in the JustGrants system. However, there is a series of information that you will need to complete in order to, I guess, satisfy all the requirements of closeout. I don't know if anybody else wants to expand on that from their end.
Yeah, Erica, hey, it's Arif from the PMT team. So you will have to complete your quarterly reporting still in the PMT and go into the PMT, mark that current report as your final, and then after you submit all your data, you'll generate that final PDF, and then at which point you'll go into JustGrants to complete the closeout process. So it's a bit of a two-step process across both of those systems.
Financial, you'll do your final drawdown in ASAP, but your financial closeout is completely in JustGrants.
Also, I want to share that we are updating our frequently asked questions. So one of the questions is how to complete a closeout. So we have like step-by-step process on how to complete the closeout. So that will be really useful. I think that this is going to be posted really soon. So we are just finishing, updating all the frequently asked questions. So that we're going to be sharing that link also. So you're able to access that information too. Do we have any other questions? No?
Not in the queue at this time.
Yes. So we appreciate your time. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact any of the presenters or your grant manager. They should be able to help you with any kind of information or question that you may have regarding your grant. Daryl?
Great. So on behalf of the Office of Victims of Crime and our panelists, we want to thank you for joining today's webinar. This will end today's presentation.